Hey there, welcome back everyone to All of Fabric 6. So today I just want to jump straight into things, no more testing, no more death science. I want to get started on a new mod, Hexcasting, which does have a chapter here in the quest book, a pretty small one, so we need to finish that page in order to get Completionist, but we may as well have a bit of fun with Hex as well and progress my knowledge of that mod just a little bit further. Every time I play with this mod, I get a little bit further in kind of like the things I can do with it, but I'm definitely no programmer and I really struggle. So hopefully I can do a fairly decent job of imparting what I've learned onto you guys. There's going to be a bunch of you out there who just know way more of this mod than I do. So please do share some of that wisdom with old kmbles. But before we get started in that, I wanted to show you guys this automatic brewing station that I promised I'd set up in between episodes. It looks pretty complicated, but it's pretty simple. And that's making essentially all these potions, even a couple others. This works a treat, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. It looks like what happens is these 4 slots and this bottle or arrow slot, they're all items that get delivered from the top, so we can put them in a recipe, and that'll populate these spots. But these 3 spots here, which are for reagents, which remember, like they have effects on the potion that you brew. Like this one will double the duration at the cost of potency. Yeah, these other things will make it stronger and last for longer. This is just a brief little setup that I did. I figured it's about time we automated the quick toxic reads. So now once every 10 minutes, this thing will trigger and just give them a haircut. It'll get picked up by the black hole chest and just dumped into our ME system through the entangled chest. But anyway, let's not get too distracted. So those things all come from the top, but the reagents, they all get delivered from the side, I think any side. And then the finished product gets taken out of the bottom. And because of that, it wasn't too hard to automate, but there was one kind of complication in that some reagents are also ingredients in a potion. So we can't just have everything being delivered to like the same barrel and then pipe it into different sides, relying on pipe filters because the same item could go into one of these slots or one of these slots. So instead I opted for a different station for different types of potions, depending on what kind of effect we want. And we just keep these reagent slots here topped up permanently by just having those items available in an interface here. So let's make a bunch of these, let's say 10. It'll deposit all the items, because we have these set to block-in mode, it'll just do a single craft at a time. It's actually going to do this 10 times and give us 30. I just turn that off for a second real quick. Okay, this seems to be giving us all the correct level of haste. Oh, here we go, here's a different one. But whereas these are all haste 6, this one comes in as haste 7. So it's not the best idea to set, like, say, 3 here in your processing recipe, because maybe you get 1 strength 6 back and 2 strength 7s. So if you change this number to like 2 or 3, but you only got 1 back, the craft will never finish and it'll just hang there in your system indefinitely. So I'm like, we'll definitely get at least 1 back. So just set it. Just set it to 1. It means we're going to get more than we asked for, but yeah. Since when is that a bad thing? You know, let's lock that again. I need you guys to see this. So you see the exact same items, we'll just do 1. The exact same items, citrine powder, shimmerstone, gems, and vegetal, right? We're going to make the exact same thing, but check out the difference in the outcome. This gives us haste 6 for 15 minutes and 45 seconds, but for some reason this one's given it to us for 47 minutes and 15 seconds. The exact same craft, but the only difference is this one's being auto-delivered by a pattern provider. I think what's happening is these potions probably got nerfed at some point in Spectrum's development, and that only counts for like the player. So since it's not me, the player, who's doing these crafts, it's our handy pattern provider here. I think that's why we're getting such ridiculously long duration of things. Anyway, I'm sure that is exploitable for anyone so inclined. So Hexcasting is what it uses these things called stacks. So it's a stack-based programmable spellcasting mod. And straight off the bat, I gotta say, it's probably the most overpowered mod in the pack, at least from what I've seen. So get the book, give it a read. As you can see, I've already had a bit of a deep dive into the book in my creative world and made a bit of a plan of where I want things to go. And let's just get the basic building blocks for this. There we go. So amethyst is what is like the currency of Hex, or what they call media. And it's what you use to cast your spells, or to cast your hex. Then we want to cast it with a staff. What is the best looking staff? Oh, actually, we've already got a bunch of them in our ME system. So this guy, the staff, opens up this hexagonal grid where you draw your spells. obviously not a correct spell. And casting correct spells will consume things like amethyst as like the cost. But the mod actually adds 2 other types of amethyst. So we have the regular amethyst shard. A lesser form of that is amethyst dust. Like it's worth not as much media as an amethyst shard is, although it is useful at times when you want to cast spells and not consume a whole shard. You can just consume some dust instead. And then a charged amethyst, which is more, equivalent to 2 amethyst shards. Right, you can probably read that stuff in the book yourself, and I urge you to. You can reset your grid, shift and right click. And how much amethyst do we have on us now? Amethyst. And look, we've already got heaps of the stuff. We've got a couple of budding amethyst blocks that we picked up from Spectrum Ruins, and I'll connect them to some growth accelerators a bit later on, and that'll be our amethyst farm. But for now, this ought to be more than enough. Now, I've been over the really early game Hex stuff before, our previous season. I'll probably go through it much quicker this time, so if this is a bit too fast for you, I urge you to go back and check out the final episode of last season. But basically, Hex gives you a grid here to work on, and in that grid you draw patterns. And those patterns are either like entities in the world, vectors like a particular coordinate. Like this block here, for instance, is at 4302, 4468, 102. That vector would point to a particular place in the world, which would be where that coal block's sitting. Another type of vector is a line vector, so that might be, so a really common version of that is like a look vector. So I'm looking from my current location, which is the coordinates up here in the top left of the screen, to another point in the world, and there's a straight line between those two. You can make operations on those vectors, like subtracting numbers to them, multiplying them together, etc. And then the final type of hex is a spell which will do a certain action on the things you've given it, on all those entities and vectors and stuff that you've set in the stack. So currently in the stack, it's just me, it's just kmbles as an entity. This is now kmbles as a location, so 4307, 4487, and 107. See, that's just the same as the coordinates we have up there in the top left-hand corner of the screen. So those hexes that I did just then, they have names. The first one was Mind's Reflection, so it adds the caster to the stack. So we'll do it again. Now me, the caster, is on the stack. The second one we did converts an entity to a vector, and that's called Compass's Purification. So do that again. What was an entity, kmbles, is now a vector or a particular point in the world with some set coordinates there. And then finally, Alidate's Purification transforms an entity on the stack into the direction it's looking as a unit vector. Okay, so rather than to get the location of where we are, give me the direction that we're looking at, another type of vector. We know that we're facing west, let's face north and see if we can generate that with our hexes. So Mind's Reflection, kmbles. Alidate's Purification. So on the X and Y, we're looking basically flat, but on the Z direction, the north or south direction, we're looking north. And then if we instead faced south, do the exact same thing, that'd be a +1. Right. And if we looked up, we'd see the pretty sky and looking up, perfectly up. And then finally, this is important because we're getting into this thing called the Raycast Mantra, which is like one of the key building blocks for all your spells. So finally, Archer's Distillation, which combines 2 vectors, a position and a direction. We've just figured out how to do those. And then it answers the question, if I stood at the position and looked in the direction, what block would I be looking at? And it costs just a small amount of media. Let's get a bunch of media ready so that it can use. Me on the stack. My location. Me on the stack again. The direction I'm looking at. And then Archer's Distillation, which was like this one. That'll tell us what block does that line vector that we just drew from my head in a specific direction, what block does it intersect with? Intersects with 4300, 103, 4490. 4300, 103, yep, so it's intersecting with that block. It costs us a singular amethyst dust, but if we didn't have this in our inventory, it would have cost us a full amethyst shard. All right, piece of dirt. That's a block that we're going to play with. Again. Okay, now we have this block here on the stack, and we can move anywhere, and the stack remains the same. We've already saved the coordinates of this block. Now let's do something to it. We can start a fire, which is like this, I guess. Small upside down triangle, and then a big triangle. Like that. And that took 2 more pieces of amethyst dust. Sadly, because we did the spell, now the stack is empty again. So I'm just going to redraw Raycast Mantra. We can break a block, which is to the right, small diamond, and then make like a box out of it, okay? Right, small diamond, and then make a box out of it. And that destroyed the block for us and took another couple of dust. What if we wanted to grow a tree? Right, we saw a second ago, there's this one called Edify Sapling. Forcibly infuse media into the sapling at the target position, causing it to grow into an edified tree, costs about 1 charged amethyst. So a quick Raycast Mantra gives you the block we're looking at, 9150. And I think what that is the block, not the sapling. We'll see in a second. And edify saplings are fish going up first. Basically what I'm saying is I don't think this is going to work. A fish expected a sapling at this block, but it got dirt instead. So therefore the spell failed. It wasn't the oak sapling we were looking at, even though when I drew the spell, you would think it would pick up the oak sapling. It picked up the block. So say you wanted to do the same thing with some wheat crops and give it a bone meal effect, which is this thing called overgrow. So it's 2 upside down fishes, but without the tail closed. So even though we're looking right at the wheat crops, 2 overgrown fishes without a tail, again, does nothing. Because what's happened is it's trying to bone meal the block, but as you can see, that does nothing. Bone meal in this block does nothing. It's the thing that takes up the space above the block. That's what needs bone mealing. Oh, and I really should stress, it gets easier, don't worry. Like the first couple of hexes you do are a bit of a pain, and you'll get real good at drawing these patterns over and over again. But there are tools that we're going to get to pretty soon that'll help us contain those spells in items, and then you just click the item to do the spell. So you won't have to do it manually. So to solve this, what we want to do is we'll stick with our Raycast Mantra, but then we want to say the face of the block we're looking at. So Archer's Distillation gives us the block that we're looking at. Architect's Distillation gives us the face of the block that we're looking at. So the book probably says it better than I could. Like Archer's Distillation, but instead returns the vector representing the answer to the question, which side of the block am I looking at? Yeah, and you'll see a similarity here between Architect's and Archer's Distillation. They look identical, but at the second point, you either take a left for Archer's Distillation or a right for Architect's Distillation. So let's take a right and try Architect's Distillation. That gives us a thing on the stack which just says 0 on the X, 0 on the Z, 1 on the Y. So it's just telling us the top side of a block. Let's try it again here, just to see that we get a -1 on the Y. Now we get 0, -1, 0, because it's the bottom side of the block. So now let's try something. Now let's try to write a hex that says locate this block here and the top side of it, and then apply a bone meal effect to that. So we go up first for the Archer's Distillation. So this is our Raycast Mantra. What block am I looking at? That's a vector now on the stack. Let's get another vector, and then information stays there on the stack. Now let's get another vector, which is the side that we're looking at. So you go down for that one. So now we have 2 bits of information. We have the block we're looking at, the piece of dirt, and then the side of the block, which is the top. You need to like combine them together. And we do that by adding them together. So that's going to say, take 2 numbers at the top of the stack, and we need to combine those together to get a single vector, which is the top side of this block. So basically the block where this wheat crop is now sitting. And you get that by adding them together. Now we have a singular answer, and it's on this block here that we want to do our bone meal effect. Ta-da! But I also want to edify that sapling while we're here. Okay, that's the sapling, and to edify it was what else? A fish with a tail closed. So now that we can do that, now that we can set a location in the world with a block, and also the block next to it, depending on which side of the block we're looking at, we can do a bunch of things with that information, such as cause an explosion, a fireball, like conjure a block. We wouldn't have been able to conjure a block where a block already sits, but now we could conjure a block at the spot just next to it. We could conjure a little light bulb. That's like that. So conjuring light summons this little guy right next to where you're looking. But there's no way you're going to be running around a cave with creepers sneaking up and you exploding and have the patience to run through this entire thing. Let's see if I can do this real quick. Like at this point, you may as well just come over and place the torch down, right? So let's make things easier by saving that entire long ass spell onto what's called a trinket. Well, first of all, you have a cipher. Cipher's fragile crystal, one of the 3 magic items capable of holding hexes and all their patterns, and a little bit of battery. It's the weakest of the 3. As soon as you use up the battery of media, like the storage of internal amethyst that's on the cipher, the thing's going to die. So, kind of junk. The next one is a trinket. Once you use up its media, like its reserved media, it won't work anymore, but you can just recharge it. So that's pretty good. And then the top tier one is an artifact, which is just like a trinket. It doesn't break when it's depleted and it's rechargeable. But unlike the trinket, it's not unusable. You can still use it in an emergency, but it eats up some of your health. Or bad things can happen. I think it eats your health. Maybe it eats your mind. There's something about minds being consumed here. A scrying lens, equipable in the face trinket slot. We'll get one of those. So we managed to get a trinket. Oh, and an artifact. It looks like we've picked up a few of these things just from our adventures. Do I have a cipher? No cipher. Very easy. Actually, a really important thing in all this is a focus. Because what a focus does is it stores a hex that you draw in an item so you can bring it back later on. So I think I'm going to craft up a focus as well. We just happen to have all the different scrolls. But no focus. Ooh, what's that? Contains anything. I don't know. Yeah, these things are pretty cheap. Leather, glowstone dust, and the charged amethyst. Easy. Using Scribe's Gambit while holding a focus in my other hand, remove the top of the stack and save it to the focus. Using Scribe's Reflection, we'll copy whatever is on the focus and add it back to the stack. So if we do our 2 spells and add them together, so we can save them by going counterclockwise. Oh, I did the wrong thing. I tried to read from the focus. We need to write to the focus. Clockwise. Do I have to restart? No. I think I could just do this. Yeah. Now this has some information on it containing... Oh, that contains not the spell. It just contains the location. 43, 24. It's always going to contain that coordinate. That's not too useful. Damn. Wasn't there like brackets? Pretty sure there's brackets that fix that. Here we are in the patterns as iotas page. We want to save not the location in a focus. We want to save the whole pattern that we've written. I think what we want to do is introspection and retrospection, which is like in mathematical language, having brackets on something. And so it'll save everything in the brackets. Bracket. And it doesn't matter where on this whole grid you draw. It just matters the order in which you draw it. That's our 2 spells. Save them. Now that whole kind of formula is saved, and then write that to what's in my offhand. There we go. I've never used this one before, but to use consideration, draw it, then another arbitrary pattern, and then the second pattern is what's... Oh, that's it. Consideration. The writing one, whatever that is. And then write that to this scroll here. Hey! Actually really hard to see. Let's try that again. And Scratch Gambit again. So write to this. I thought these were supposed to be animated and show you the direction which you write things. That's a pain. Turn shaders off. Nah. Still not drawing. I'm fairly certain that's a thing. So maybe just because I've got particles set down to low, that's not working. Which is a shame because this is a really cool way of remembering the patterns you need. Forget the scrolls then. We have saved in this focus here a spell that will always give us the block next to the block we're looking at on the side we're looking at it. So let's do some things with that information. We've got a focus here. We want to take stuff off the focus and put it on the stack, which remember is Scribe's Reflection, counterclockwise to copy what's on the focus and bring it onto the stack. Counterclockwise, right? And you execute the pattern with, it's called Hermes Gambit. I don't know where it is. It's that one. It's literally that one. Oh, here it is. Under meta evaluation, we get Hermes Gambit. It removes a pattern or list of patterns from the stack and casts it as if you drew it yourself. So let's try that again. We'll bring out onto the stack the list of patterns in our focus. and then we'll Hermes Gambit it to get that kind of, to get all those things summoned in, and cast some light. Again, we'll bring it out. Oh my God, I always forget Hermes Gambit. And we'll, instead of going up for light, we'll conjure a block, and now we've got a magical block sitting here, which is cool. Oh, cool, and a punch gets rid of that too. All right, let's save those things onto a trinket so that we don't even have to do this anymore. We can just use the trinket. All right, look, I'm not going to lie. I've got that nice long spell saved in this focus here, but it's not really doing us much good because I'm not sure how I'm supposed to bring that out. Like, that would bring it out, execute it, summon a bit of light in. Yeah, that's not how you write trinkets. So I think we need to kind of start again with the focus. From the beginning, that is. It's the whole thing to summon light. And then write that. New spell in the focus, it's summon light. Okay, yeah, so we want to use, where are we? So many pages. Crafting trinket. We want to craft a trinket with this light spell on it, which if you read the thing down here, it's saying it takes an entity, which is the media. That's our amethyst. Then the list of patterns doing the spell. Let's see if I can remember this properly. What's it looking at? We've got our amethyst on the ground. That's our media. So there it is. It's got quite a small hitbox. You got to make sure you hit it. And this is a new one for us. So we do the regular kind of, what am I looking at? So me, my look direction, and we're concerned with what entity my look direction intercepts with. Here, Scout's Distillation. So instead of giving you back the block you're looking at, it's going to give you the entity you're looking at. So what entity am I looking at? I'm looking at a bunch of charged amethyst. So that's our battery. And then the list of patterns in our focus. Bring them back out onto the stack. So the media that's going to form the battery, or the number of spells we get. Then it's the spell itself. And now we need to cast that to a trinket. So we're going to swap out the focus for the trinket. And do this god-awful thing. Okay, it looks like you go in and then around anti-clockwise, out and then around anti-clockwise, and it's got a little top and a tail. Obviously going to mess this up. So in, that, out, top and tail. Okay, this is the test. All right. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so that's a start. That's a trinket. We saw we can do it with artifacts as well, which I think store more or whatever. It doesn't matter too much. But what we want to do is get that and a bunch of other spells, like a bunch of other spells, and put it onto a spellbook, which just stores them all for us. So just like there, how we were storing on our focus here, instead of using the focus, we can use just like a page of the spellbook. It can store 64 pages. All right, this thing. Yes, please. Just 2 books and quills. Pretty cheap. And another quest page ticked off. So pardon me for about 10 minutes, while, or more maybe, while I try to figure out all these spells, and I'll save them to different pages of the spell book, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to actually cast them from the book. All right, so where are we? So we have a book here with a bunch of spells on there now, kind of the basic boring ones. I mean, the ones we're unlikely to use very often. Break block, ignite block, create water, destroy liquid, edify sapling, and overgrow. There's plenty of space for more, and I'm really keen on getting into some cooler ones that I haven't tried before. But we need to go through how these things work, you know? I'm right-clicking, nothing's happening. Well, this operates just like a focus in that it has a spell on there as a pattern, but no media or any kind of hex that's telling it, hey, do the action, you know? So what we want is we're going to get a store, like a large amount of amethyst, of media, into an artifact. And that artifact's going to be our CAD, our CAD, Casting Assistant Device. And we're going to hold it like this, and it's going to say whatever spell we have in our offhand, do that at the block that we're looking at. And then it's just a matter of getting more spells on here, like some transportation spells or like combat spells, and we can use the same CAD to cast them. So let's craft up a CAD then. All right, got a focus. I'm just going to override it. On this focus, we want to say retrieve spell is counterclockwise. Yeah. So we want this focus to say when it's called to retrieve and then execute. All right? Does that make sense? So we're going to have an artifact here full of media that when it's activated retrieves the spell from our offhand, which will be our spellbook, and executes that command, that spell. I'm not sure if I'm getting in trouble calling it a spell. And then let's write that to this focus. And then we're going to put that spell on this artifact with a bunch of media. So media on the ground. Me, the direction I'm looking at. The entity that it collides with, charged amethyst. Then the retrieval of the spell from our offhand, which is, I was confused, it's counterclockwise. Exit out of this. We want to save that to this artifact. Saving to artifacts is this crazy spell here. So we've done it to trinkets before, but now we have to do it to an artifact. I'm honestly struggling. How do you read that? You go just like a trinket, big box around, big circle, and then the legs, top, bottom. Oh my God. All right, let's see if I remembered that. I think it's like this. And the artifact's in our left hand. Much better memory than I thought I did. Let's test this out. Wish me luck. So our first spell is Break Block. We did that one well. Secondly is Ignite Block. Third one is Create Water. The fourth one is Destroy Liquid. Yeah, that works. Actually want it there so this can be blent. Whoa. Can't plant wheat seeds there for some reason. Whatever, we can't plant there. And Destroy Liquid, Edify Sapling. Oops, I was looking at the block behind it. Edify Sapling. Yeah. And then the last one will be Overgrow. Cool, that works really, really well. I have no idea what this thing does. And it doesn't really position itself right in my eyes there, so I might get rid of it. Perfect. Right, so that was some really, really fun tricks. But pretty basic stuff. Like, I'm unlikely to use those things very often. It's good to have them there in the book, but they're not the spells that I'm really interested in. The explosion is give it a vector, give it a location, give it a power, and then execute it. That requires having a quick look into numbers. Numbers are super easy. Like, it might look difficult, but it's pretty easy. It just follows these few principles here. So you draw yourself this pattern. So you end here, and then you go forward one to add 1 to the stack, or you'd go left to add 5, right to add 10, etc. Sharp left to multiply by 2, sharp right to divide by 2. So as you can see, this sets you off 0. You go right 1, so that's a 10. It's the same pattern but sideways. Left, forward, forward, so 5 plus 1 plus 1, etc. Explosion of 5. So we need a look vector. That's a trusty old Raycast Mantra to give us a block that's sitting right there. Now we need a number. I think we start on the left here and we go across. So we wanted 5. 5. And then we want to set off an explosion at that location. Yeah, okay, so you start off by going right, up, down, ba, 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 ba. Pretty decent explosion. It cost us a bunch of hex. Blink will teleport you through some blocks, and Impulse will just kind of like shoot you off in that direction real quick. Just looking right at a wall here. I'm the entity there. A number, 5, and then Blink. Is it really as simple as that? Yeah, super easy. Some reason we're embedded. Some reason we're embedded in the floor. Entity me number of how many blocks to teleport it in its look vector. I didn't have to tell the spell my look vector. But this thing says, gives the shove to the given entity in the given direction. So I have to give it a direction as well. The strength of the impulse is determined by the length of the vector. Blah, blah, blah. Hold up. So we can't just do... Oh my god. Can we stop, please? We can't just do entity number and blink, can we? No. Impulse expected a vector at 0 but got a number. I don't fully understand this one yet. Entity, the direction I'm looking at, the number 5. Then it's this one. That's the pattern for multiplication. So we had our look direction and the number 5 and we times them together. I'm not exactly sure why that's the case, why we do that. But anyway, it's what I did last season and it worked. Now, bam. That's pretty cool. Right, now I said last episode that we're not going to be using the potions to get things big and small because I had another mod in mind that could do it for us, and that is, of course, Hex, with cross-mod compatibility with Pehkui, which is the thing that increases and decreases things size. Do Gulliver's Purification and alter scale to get the scale of the entity as a proportion of their normal size. For most entities, this will be 1. Set the scale of an entity passing in a proportion of their normal size costs about 1. I mean, we're going to have to test this, aren't we? You. Let's try these out on our friend here, Mr. Mule. So me, the entity I'm looking at, Mule, and what size is it? It should just give back 1 because I haven't done anything to this guy yet. 1. All right. Set the scale of the entity passing in a proportion of their normal size. So I think that means if we have a number of like 0.5, this guy will become half as big. Or alternatively, if we set it to 2, this guy will be twice as big. I love messing with these guys' sizes. And unlike the potion effects, this thing's permanent. Like, that's not going to change size. Remember, you can take a sharp right to divide by 2. So let's do that. Let's get our mule on the stack. Get 1, and then sharp right. Like, that would be a regular right. That's a sharp right. To get 0.5. And then make a cute little guy. Oh, it can't jump. It's too short. Too short to jump up there. There we go. Come on. It struggles. Make sure you don't get sat on by this guy. Oh, I really love that. So that's changing the shape of them. What about changing the shape or the size of moi? That should be pretty easy. Kmbles, and then a number. What's the point of being half size? Maybe I should be like quarter size. 0.25, would that just be 1 sharp right? Sharp right? Yeah. Oh god, don't make a mess. I don't know what to say. This is definitely a different perspective. It's one way to view the world. I move so slow though. Oh, we need to fix this. I'm going too slow. Ah. Pardon me coming through. I don't seem to fit through the door anymore. Uh-oh. So here we are in our factory. Can't even see where I'm going. Oops, now I'm down here. Now I'm down here snaking through the factory. Alright, that's definitely... I'm glitching through blocks now. Now, some people like to get small when they're working on their MI factory, so they can get in here into the nitty-gritty and set all the filters and stuff. But we don't really need to do that. It is so much fun, though. Let's quickly set ourselves back to normal. And we'll save these spells as well. Better. Now there's some size ones on there. Let's test them out. So we have Mini Me, Maxi Me, get the big variant, the big boy, and then regular size. Okay. And how about you guys? Can I fix you? Mini U? Big U? Alright, this guy can try the regular size. That is a god-awful sound. There we go. Okay, well, yikes, I did not get through half of what I wanted to today, but unfortunately we're going to have to leave it there. Normally I'd probably edit all this down a bit more, but I really feel like Hex is pretty underutilized because I think people find it a bit too intimidating, but it's really not. So I kind of wanted to take it step by step, and hopefully I did an alright job explaining things. A reminder though, maybe check out the final episode of last season for another explanation, and perhaps a not too subtle attempt by me to get a few more of you to watch the fun bit of lore that I did to wrap that season up. Anyway, next episode I'll automate Amethyst so that we basically don't have to worry about the cost of these spells anymore. And we can look at getting into some of these greater spells, and we'll see what we can do with them. Any hexes out there, or hexperts? Any hex crafters? Hex disciples? Okay, I'll stop there. Basically, if anyone's good at hex out there, please help me out. What cool things should I try? And how do we do it? Alright, hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.